Lila was a quiet girl. She hadn't always been this way, but over time, the world taught her to stay silent. At school, her classmates would laugh or roll their eyes when she spoke. The voices of adults echoed in her mind. Don't speak unless spoken to. You're too loud. Nobody wants to hear you. So, Lila stopped trying. She walked through the schoolyard with her notebook pressed tightly to her chest, her steps small and careful, as though she wanted to disappear. She would hum softly to herself, a melody only she could hear, never loud enough for anyone else to notice. At recess, she sat alone under a large tree, sketching stars and moons in her notebook, watching the other kids laugh and play. Her voice, locked away like a secret, never crossed her lips. When she was alone at home, Lila's world was different. In her room, surrounded by her drawings of stars and moons, she would sing. Her voice was soft and magical, carrying a warmth that seemed to make the stars in her sketches twinkle and the moon glow faintly. But even here she would stop herself, afraid someone might hear her. One day during recess, Lila sat under her usual tree, humming a tune while sketching in her notebook. She thought she was alone. But Theo, a boy from her class, had been nearby and heard her. "That was you singing, wasn't it?" Theo asked, stepping closer. Lila froze, clutching her notebook. "No," she whispered, barely audible. "It was you," Theo said with a grin. "That was amazing. Why don't you sing like that in class?" Lila shook her head, her eyes downcast. "People don't like it when I talk too much." Theo frowned. "That's not true. Your voice is beautiful. You should let people hear it." Lila didn't respond, but Theo didn't give up. Over the next few days, he kept encouraging her. He told her about the school talent show and suggested she perform. At first, Lila refused, but Theo promised to help her. Slowly, she began to trust him. After school, they practiced together. Lila's confidence grew little by little, and her magical voice began to shine. When she sang, the stars in the night sky seemed to twinkle brighter, and even the fireflies gathered around to listen. The night of the talent show arrived. Lila stood backstage, trembling with nerves. She could hear the audience clapping for the other performers, but all she could think about were the voices in her head. Don't speak unless spoken to. Nobody wants to hear you. Theo appeared beside her, giving her a reassuring smile. You've got this, Lila. Just sing like you do when it's just us. Lila took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The spotlight felt blinding, and for a moment she froze. The audience was silent, waiting. Then, she closed her eyes and began to sing. Her voice filled the auditorium, soft at first, then growing stronger. It was pure and enchanting, carrying a light of its own. The stars on the stage backdrop began to glow, and the audience sat mesmerized. As Lila sang, the storm cloud of doubt that had followed her for so long began to fade. She opened her eyes and saw the audience smiling, clapping, and even tearing up. By the time she finished, the entire room erupted in applause. Backstage, Theo was waiting for her, grinning from ear to ear. That night, Lila walked home, her notebook in one hand and a small trophy in the other. She hummed softly to herself, no longer afraid of being heard. Fireflies lit up around her, dancing to the rhythm of her song. Above her, the stars twinkled brighter than ever, as if they, too, were listening.